question that you guys asked me. I'm sorry? Okay. Don't count on that. Just, it'll take 1 minute.
Okay. Open the meeting, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like the minutes to reflect that we had an executive session prior to the meeting tonight for personnel. Are there any comments on agenda items? Any comments on agenda items? Okay, I don't see any. Item 4, approval of minutes from August 20th. Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Comments, questions? Roll call?
Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yep.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Superintendent's report, Heather?
Yep. So I want to make an addendum or a change to item number 6 or 5. Pardon me. The appointment of the assistant boys/girls golf coach. That is now Kurt Pickett. So I am, with that change, I am asking for a motion to approve items 1 through 9 on the regular agenda and items 1 through 6 on the supplemental agenda.
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes, except I need to abstain from number 6 on the regular agenda.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Okay,
So the only other thing I want to do before we go on is I want to publicly thank Southwest Energy and P&G, who both made a mass donation to the district. And I think I'd mentioned it to you guys that had happened. I publicly want to thank them for thinking of us and for making that donation. That's all.
thank you. Committee reports. I believe Transportation Committee met. Do we have a report from them?
Sure. So we did have a transportation committee meeting. We met to discuss with board members who were present the cleaning procedures that have been implemented for the buses. We also talked about some of our other strategies around seating, our objectives to ensure good airflow. We also did begin a conversation regarding concerns about what will happen if the district were to go fully virtual. The contractors have expressed their concern about their ability to continue to remain in business if they are not paid for an extended period of time. We took the opportunity to discuss some potential solutions, one of which was to write a letter to our local legislators to help them understand the compelling need that communities have to continue to support local contractors such as busing. We recognize that there is an extreme shortage of drivers. We recognize that there are a number of fixed costs that the contractors are faced with, and we collectively agree that the state needs to continue to support schools in their efforts to work in partnership with their contractors. So myself and Rob Perry agreed to draft a letter on behalf of the committee and the contractors as well. We have an initial draft that has been put together, and the next step will be to get that to the contractors so that they have an opportunity to input to that process, and then we'll be sending that out out to the local legislators. So that was kind of a key step. And also, Heather also took a follow-up item out of there, and she can provide an update on that.
I have been meeting weekly with Karen Boback and some community leaders from Wyoming County, and I had mentioned it on our meeting last week, and Karen took the action of writing to the governor and addressed that issue, as well as the issue of our connectivity challenges, and so I thank her for that.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Extracurricular?
I got a question
I'm
on
sorry,
committee
no.
meeting. Did we discuss the possibility of the band performing at home games?
At the extracurricular activity, yes.
We do. We did.
And
Yeah.
we're going to allow it? What
Wanna
was
give my
the
report?
decision?
Yes, it's extracurricular.
I'll talk
Cover
to
that?
Okay.
We had an extracurricular meeting right before this meeting, or before our executive.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right now, the rules are changed, that spectators are allowed to come. So we've decided that we want, and let me preface this by saying all the sports outdoors, okay, including football, field hockey, girls field hockey, boys and girls
Soccer?
soccer, and girls tennis. I think that's it, right, Kenny? Those are the sports for outdoors. Cross country. Golf and cross country. And then the indoor sport is girls volleyball. So the outdoor sports venue, I think the only one that we are going to come to that 250 max capacity is football. So what we decided, you have to take into account each team, their coaches, their health staff, the coaches that are up in the box, the chain gang, the 10 officials, any media people that, and we only get a couple. Then you have the cheerleaders for the home games, and we did decide that right now, based on the band, it's really a drum line, because we're waiting, and my understanding is for PPE, for the trumpets and the wind instruments.
Yeah.
So we are allowing the drum line to come until we work out the PPE with the wind instruments, okay? Now, from the 250 spectator, Mr. Janeski did have a sheet, and security can be involved in this, where we're counting the people as they come in. There will be one gate for football. This is for football. So what we're doing is pre-game, we're going to get an idea, several days before the game, we're going to get an idea how many athletes, coaches, staff, etc. And then what we want to do is we want to go to the senior parents to get the first choice to come and watch their children play. After those tickets, and those are the senior, let's say the first week, the senior football players. And then we want to go to the senior students next. We think this should be about the kids and, of course, the senior parents. I know that will disappoint some people. It's the best decision we can make. And to be honest with you, by the time you get the teams in there, there's probably going to be 150 counted for, if not maybe 175. So we'll have the remaining amount of tickets left. The second week, what we would have, the second home game, we would propose that the cheerleader seniors and some of the senior band members get to have their senior night, and their parents get to come to take the pictures and things like that. And then the last home game would be the remaining band members that are seniors and have their parents. We feel that that's the best way to have the parents of the seniors, this is their last year, and then to get our kids, our senior students, the remaining tickets. So I don't know what that number will be. It will fluctuate, but we feel that's in the best interest of the students, the parents involved. Obviously, we're still practicing all the safe guidelines. So that's my recommendation to the board in that regard. The other sports, you've got cross-country tennis. We've had a couple of tennis matches. There might be 30 people out there. So I don't think we're anywhere near going to be coming to the 250 people. We still have security. We have coaches there. People, from what I see, are still following the rules. They're wearing the mask. They're social distancing. And for all the student athletes, all the coaches have been great. We're washing the hands. We're cleaning down any equipment. We're doing the best we can with all the student athletes and any of the coaches and things like that. I will tell you, personally, guys, it's 90 degrees and you're wearing one of these things walking around outside. It gets hot and sweaty fast. So we change the masks out and we do the best we can. But in regards to sports, I don't think there's any other sport, outdoor sport, that creates a problem. For the indoor sport, right now it's the 25 max. And that's, right now it's girls volleyball. And I know Mr. Janeski has something worked out with Coach Binner that there's going to be a certain number for the matches, a certain number of players and a coach in the gym for each team, along with the referees, and the substitutes will have to be out in the hallway to get called in. 25 is not a big number for 2 volleyball teams. But that's the best thing we can do right now is continue to follow what Mr. Janeski and Mr. Bosher and the way that they're counting for those. There's a new bill that was passed by our Senate and House that allows the school district to probably make their own spectator rules and number rules for their district. It is not a law. It was passed, from what I understand, by over a 2/3 majority vote. My understanding is the governor is going to veto that. If that bill then goes back to the House and Senate and they still have a 2/3 majority, then it will be law. But it's a moot point right now for tonight's meeting because it's just not a law right now. So we have to stick with what the recommendations and the guidelines are. That's my recommendation anyway.
Okay. Do we need to have on the agenda for the next meeting to approve those or
To approve.
recommendations from the extracurricular?
Do we have to vote on that?
I don't, because it really hasn't
so.
changed
It
what,
doesn't change our health and safety.
We're
It
just-
just changes the spectator rule that's in our guidelines, to be honest.
yeah. The 250 is in there that we would follow that.
It is.
It's just we're refining how we're going to do that.
And I think our guideline says no spectators. So that's really the only change. We're allowing spectators with the caveat of we're identifying who we feel are the spectators for those limited numbers of tickets. That's basically all we're doing.
I mean, it sounds like a good plan.
And if you guys are okay with that, then Phil, I think if that's, you could vote to approve that, because that one doesn't have to be submitted to the state. It only needs board approval.
Okay.
So
So
you
I'll
guys
make a
could
motion.
vote on that, and that would just seal it up.
Okay, I'll make
Okay.
a motion
Okay.
that the health and safety guidelines are amended to include the written spectator rule that I just talked
Yeah.
about, and we'll put that in.
Limited spectators. yeah.
Second.
Okay,
We
okay.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thanks, Bill.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Dr. Frivola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Step forward, yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Widener? Yes. Mr. Farr?
Yes. I believe there were no other committee that met.
There wasn't a business and finance, but I just want to make a comment if I could about the finance
Sure.
stuff. In the supplemental agenda, our enrollments are given there. It was 2,158 is our current enrollment. Just so everyone knows that versus last year, that's down about 75 students, which has been a pretty similar drop since, if you go back to almost 1975, it's somewhere between 40 and 80 a year approximately. So that's like normal attrition and folks leaving the district. I want to thank the administration, Heather, the building principals, our teachers for putting in place the plan that we had with the Fusion C3 program in this campus. And so for those of you who have attended board meetings before, there was some discussion previously, depending on how many left our district, what that would do to our financials. And it could have been bad enough that it would have taken our entire fund balance in a single year. So there's some long-term impacts that could have occurred. And the work that this team did to get us started has been commendable. I've looked at some of the content. It's impressive. We're going to start slow, and so I think there'll probably be some comments about that. But getting people who aren't used to cyber learning, it's not the same as bricks and mortar every day. And so the district, I'm sure, will get up and going on this, but I wanted to give a shout out for that because it could have gotten us off to a place that we would have had an awfully hard time ever coming back from in this district. And I know ever sounds like a lot, but if we did not have that Fusion program, the enrollment there is about 650 kids. And so if you lose 650 kids to private cyber charter, I didn't do the math beforehand, but it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million. So even if you did a poor job and retained half of those people, our fund balance would be somewhere in the $4.5 to $5 million range. That would have taken that in a single year. And so there will continue to be opportunities in this district, but a lot of things coming into this were going well. The other thing that I'll make a comment on, for those who don't know me, my name is John Burke. I worked at Procter & Gamble for 15 years. I spent some time with Gene Ziak, who's in the front here. He trained me when I was a new manager, but I still have some strong ties there, and I spoke to the individual who's been consulting with other districts on their reopening plan. and he said Tuncanic's plan is the best, and it's not even close. And so I've gotten a lot of emails from people about what other districts are doing and why they're doing it. I would caution people to compare to what other districts locally are doing. I've heard from a couple of people in neighboring districts on the struggles that they've had on the reopening, and the first 2 days in Tunkhannock seem to have gone pretty well. I have 2 kids in the district, my wife's a teacher in the district, and I talk to a lot of people. So there will definitely be things that we want to improve and change, but I would also encourage everybody to take a look at where we came from in this pandemic and take it one step at a time. And so that was a little bit about the financials, but how important it was to this community to not lose that money. If we had not executed that well, and who knows, there's going to be challenges in front of us, but if we lose $5 million, we are in a crash and burn scenario, and our kids will never get the education that they will a year from now had it not been done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
I just want to include the teachers in that shout out because they have done an amazing job. My admin team is amazing, but without the teachers, we never could have done this. And I cannot say enough. I have seen some of the content. It is phenomenal. We're struggling, you guys. I mean, we're learning as we go, and I know that parents, I just asked for your patience. I know today there was a glitch, and we're working it out. So as soon as we know about it, we work to fix it and make it better. And that's our motto. We keep getting better, and we will continue with that. So just be patient with us. Your teachers are working really hard. I know they've reached out to your kids, and the ones that are teaching in brick and mortar are also course writers. So this has been a super heavy lift. I couldn't be more proud of this faculty, and I cannot thank them enough. That's all.
Yes, a lot of thanks go out to the teachers as well as the administration. Whole team effort. We really appreciate them. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We have several board policies that have had a first reading and are getting a second reading tonight and approval.
So
Did
these had a first reading in March,
Yes.
right? And we're just circling back around.
Yep. So policies A through E, they're listed there. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold? Yes. Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Okay, on the new business, 2020 PSBA officer elections. Your ballots are in front of you, I believe, everybody. And Howie, did you have a report for this?
So, if you've looked over it, you see that all of them except for one have as many candidates as there are positions. So that makes it a lot easier when you're deciding who to vote for these things. The only one that was contested is the vice president position. I would recommend Sabrina Backer for the purpose that she seems to be more experienced and seems to have just a different outlook on things. It doesn't hurt that I think she's one of the only females that were actually getting involved here. So, certainly you all can vote for whomever you prefer, but that would be my recommendation.
Okay. And do we do these individually or as a board?
As a board.
As a board. Do we have a motion to accept Holly's recommendations?
I'll motion to accept Holly's recommendation.
And second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Dr. Pavola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Sure.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Item 2, looking for resolution to be adopted approving the district's response to the Auditor General.
Motion approved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think it's worth noting there was some controversy about this, thinking that there were some in the community that presented this audit as some kind of a special investigation into some kind of shady happenings at Tunkhannock School District, when in fact it was just, we were due, it's like every 4 years or so that you get them. And any findings that they had were minimal. It was little oversights here or there. I think there were 2, and none of them were a secret gas money account fund that we were reporting money in. So I'm sure everybody can breathe a sigh of relief.
Matter of fact, one of them shows that the state owes us money.
Yes.
Good luck collecting it, but they owe us money.
Yes, these audits are scheduled and routine, that they were done periodically. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Dr. Pergola?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 3, looking for resolution approving continuity equitable education grant.
Motion approved.
Second.
Could you tell us what this is for?
Mary Jean,
Mary Jean?
they want to know what we spent the...
So for this particular one, it's going to go for the course writing that we did over the summer and a lot of the cyber programs that you're seeing up and running. And then the other piece of it will be for software that we need for our Fusion Secret.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Dr. Pergola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Item 4, looking for a resolution to approve the purchase of book graphic design and print technology.
Motion approved.
Second.
Is there a cost?
Pardon me?
Is there a cost?
I'm sure there's a cost. You know the cost?
Someone that
If we
Tell
know,
us
I mean,
about
it looks like we're using an outdated book.
the graphic design
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Right?
We are.
Right.
I am going to Greg Ellsworth. Mr. Ellsworth, can you talk about the graphic design book, please? That's being approved tonight? The graphic arts book?
The graphic art book. Do we know the cost of the graphic arts book that Jan Cicek wants to use?
Yes, he's got it. It was, I think the cost of both books together was about $700.
Oh my God, okay. Thank you.
So much?
Yes, no problem. I apologize if I'm not here.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's from that.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory? Yes. Dr. Pergola?
Yes.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes. Okay, item 5, discussion of the district's face covering plan.
Well, I guess I'll take the lead on that. I had asked for this to be put on the agenda, and we haven't ever actually had a discussion about this, and at least not in depth and not in public. I have written something here to try and make sure I get all my points, so I'm going to read that, and we can go from there. I will also add that my initial thought of what I thought I wanted to propose as a solution has changed with time, so I believe that there's discussion and, I don't want to say negotiation, but compromise that can take into mind everybody's concerns, but also do what I feel is the right thing. I want to be clear that my request to revisit this issue should in no way be construed as a lack of support or pride in the TASD response to the unprecedented COVID pandemic. Our admin, teachers, and staff have been turning out more content and at a higher level than I had imagined, and they've been doing it all summer in preparation for the return to school. As with so many other pieces of the puzzle this year, it is important to be able to take in information as it becomes available and look at matters in light of the ongoing challenges we face. Sometimes even a small shift in guidance justifies looking at a previously settled issue with fresh eyes. I believe this is one of those times. I believe that a revision is an appropriate compromise and update for these reasons. And what I would like to see is that students may wear cloth masks without a doctor's note, and that they would still need a doctor's note for any of the other alternative face covering options, shield, whatever be the case. 2 weeks ago, we all had approved and accepted a plan where students would be wearing district masks when on the bus or in the halls or at other times of the school day when social distancing was not an option. At all other times, students would be wearing nothing. No mask, no shield. Since that time, there's been no meaningful change to the conditions of COVID incidents in our community. The risk in our district community has not changed since we approved that plan. The only thing that changed was the statewide PDE mandate. A change in the mask mandate on August 17th required a change in the mask policy from TASD. There is certainly a difference we can all appreciate between wearing a mask for a few moments at a time throughout the day versus wearing a mask for the full day. Earlier in this process, I likened the difference between the paper masks and the cloth masks to the difference between a tissue and a handkerchief. At that time, under those circumstances, I believed that to be the case. The considerations for a piece of PPE, or personal protective equipment, that must be worn all day are more complex than what we had originally approved and planned for. There's no guidance by the state or PDE or CDC that would indicate a paper mask is any more effective than a cloth mask. This district has an obligation to provide masks for all students and staff, but that does not mean that compliant face coverings of other types, specifically cloth mask covered, are any less safe for children or staff. In fact, a properly fitted cloth mask would be considered more effective than an ill-fitting paper mask. When wearing a mask all day, comfort for the wearer is often a very large precursor to increased compliance. The initial and largely significant argument for using only school masks was one of hygiene and sanitation, just as the school may be concerned with a family's ability or willingness to take the proper maintenance and sanitization measures recommended for cloth masks at home. Parents are also expressing valid concerns. They have no control over the type, storage, distribution, or maintenance of the district mask. The district mask has been stored in places and with methods they have no control over, transported without protection, which I understand there are now Ziploc bags involved, but they are Ziploc bags, and parents have no option to wash or sanitize this mask in the evenings before putting it on their child's face to then breathe through and wear all day, every day. The way our procedure is currently set, parents are told they will comply with the district's strict restrictions, or their student can be denied an in-person education. We offer only the option of a shield or N95, and even then, only with a doctor's note. Please let that sink in. We have gotten to the point where we are prioritizing a needlessly specific paper mask over a student's classroom education when there are other, completely equivalent or sometimes better options available. When just 2 weeks ago, we would have required none. Students would be sitting in the classroom with no masks on their faces, no shields, nothing. Every one of us approved that, everyone up here. So, a couple things I've thought about after I've written this. I believe that the spirit of this policy was absolutely genuine and well-intentioned. I believe that nobody was thinking, this is one more area where we can just control something. But it also eliminates the opportunity for any kind of other disposable mask. We got a letter from somebody today saying that at P&G, they all have to wear the exact same mask. That's not true. This mask that I have on my face, 10 times more comfortable than those blue masks. My family wears them all the time. And it's a mask from P&G. This is the mask that I actually thought that we would be getting, and the one that I gave you, thinking this was the mask we were going to get. These are the masks that my family has been wearing. This wouldn't even be an option because it is not the blue school-provided mask. My son is in the back. My children, we had discussions before all this. They're going to school. He wore the blue mask today. And by the end of the day, the bottom of his chin was sore. Is that like a deal breaker? Not necessarily. Is that conducive to effective learning when he could be wearing another P&G mask? That's not fancy, not colorful, just different. That seems needlessly specific. If you look at pictures online of the kids on their first days of school, I didn't print any, I'm not calling anybody out, but I know that there were some from teachers and some from administrators and some from board members. You see these masks on these adolescent kids. They're too big for a pediatric mask, but they're they're gaping at the sides. An ill-fitting mask is not any more effective than a good-fitting cloth mask. There were, there was an email from a teacher who was talking about how they wanted to have all the masks be the same, and she gave the example for the cleanliness that a mask came back into school filthy and she was able to just replace it. And I know the point she was trying to make, but my point would be that just shows that even the school issued masks go home with these kids. They can come back in filthy the next day. We can't control that. We do the next common sense thing. If a kid has a visibly dirty mask on their face, we say, hey, that's not safe. That's not healthy for you. Let's switch that out. And we let the parents know that. If we're concerned about them being 2-ply versus 1-ply cloth, then we say that. We have a dress code. We don't provide uniforms for the kids. We give the parents the guidelines, and we ask them to follow them. And if they don't, we take steps and we put things in place to handle that on a case-by-case basis. And would there be potential bumps in the road? Sure. But if you look around this room right now, I'm also not going to call anybody out. And you see different people, specifically people wearing blue masks in some cases, gaping at the sides if they have a smaller face, if they have, a more narrow face. They're not fitting properly. If one of these little pleats comes undone, now all of a sudden you've got a gap in the side of the mask. I feel kind of like it's surreal even having this conversation because it seems like it's a common sense situation. I couldn't find a single school that was requiring only a school district provided mask. I asked in school board groups, I talked to teachers from other districts, and they're not having any reportable issue that I've heard about in those conversations. Clearly, I have not talked to every principal and had every conversation. But one of the other concerns somebody had was they liked the idea of not having to worry about washing their kids' masks. They want to just use a school mask. And I would say then do that. I'm not suggesting we stop providing masks. But I also don't see a need to be needlessly specific about this when it looks, it's hard to bring the rationale together on the fact that we have to be so specific about the cleanliness of the masks, but then we put them in envelopes with papers and mail them home in the mail, and we're going to put a hook on the side of a desk that all the kids that use that desk all day can hook their masks on. But we're not going to disinfect the desks because we're going to put placemats on them. All of these things are new. All of these things we're figuring out as we go along. This is not a criticism of anybody's creative thinking or how we want to do things, but we have to make sure that there's continuity in what we're saying that we want to achieve. Allowing cloth masks and allowing the alternatives with the doctor's note, to me, feels like a reasonable compromise on this issue. And with several of the people who have contacted me, I have floated that past them, and almost all think that just allowing the cloth masks eliminates about 95% of the problems, 95% of the concerns. The concerns of parents that can't do anything to sanitize this thing once it gets to their house. If the kid gets it on the bus and half the bus steps on it, they would send them to school with their own cloth mask the next day because they can't do anything about that one. So I just think that this is, to continue down this road would be an unforced error, in my opinion. And like Heather said, when we know that we have a problem, we can fix the problem. It might not be perfect, it might need some tweaking, but that would be what I'd put forward as a compromise.
If I may, I'd like to throw in on this one. The blue masks that some of you may have received from P&G were purchased when all this started. P&G has since bought 2 machines, and they are making their own masks. They are these white ones. These white ones are made for adults. They're not made for children. You might stretch them, you might feel them out. Every employee that goes in every day at P&G is issued 3 in a brown paper bag. We don't know who handled them before that. We don't know how sanitary it is. Additionally, what's the matter with a child having a little bit of color on their face? A mask will work well. I wear a neck gaiter and I stuff one of these underneath it because I don't like it around my ear. I got called out by the plant's safety leader, and when I flipped it down and showed him it was in there, he just said, "Okay, Bill," and walked away. I've been a P&G employee for 22 years. I think we're a little extreme, because if an employee is caught with their mask down and closed at quarters, they're sent home for 14 days and they're not paid. If it's unfortunate that an employee comes in and they've been in contact with their child, their grandchild, a friend, a neighbor who happened to come down with it, they're sent home without pay. There's nothing wrong with the mask if you want to wear them as an adult, but there's nothing wrong with wearing a cloth mask if you're a child and you want to have a good time. I see cloth masks here. I see a neck gaiter. I see at least 7 different styles of masks in this building right now, and nobody's calling you out on it. Why do we have to punish the children? I think cloth masks should be allowed.
Well, I've exchanged some information with Holly. I appreciate both sides of this discussion. As you may know, I am an MD down in Wilkes-Barre, and you know the mask issue here in Tunkhannock is something that Holly brings up, and I know we've received some emails from the community. I will just say from the medical perspective, I believe that the masks, which I believe if a kid, Holly, you brought up a point, if a kid gets it dirty and he comes in and the teacher or whoever knows it's dirty, we give him a new one in the morning, right? Or her. Okay. So we have the supply of these masks. There is no perfect mask. I will tell you that these are the surgical masks that the surgeons wear in the operating room. When they do fit well, obviously they work, but that's any mask. If a gaiter is not worn correctly and it's a single ply, there will be more aerosol droplets through. That's in the medical literature, but it has to be worn correctly. The face shield issue, it protects the mucous membranes in the eyes. That's why in the hospitals we wear face shields and masks, because especially if there's aerosol flying around the room when you're examining a patient, you don't want to get that on your eyes or your face. In regard to Tunkhannock, okay, there is no right or wrong answer here. Okay? What we do, or what I do as a board, is we have to maximize the safety of the kids and the employees and the community as best we can. I believe our administration presented their mask policy. I believe that asks the community and the students to maximize the safety of all the people in the building. Is it perfect? No. I also believe that you have to look at, why are we doing this? And the answer is, in my mind, I want to get these kids back in school. I want to get them back in bricks and mortar. I don't believe that the virtual learning is going to be as good as bricks and mortar. People can argue with me if they want. That's my feeling. And how do we do that? We take the steps that we're doing to maximize the safety. We don't want COVID in the building. Okay? So this, in my opinion, is one step to ask the community, ask the parents to please bear with us. I believe that these masks are safer than a gaiter or a single ply. I also believe that kids have to wash their hands. I also believe that we have to social distance. There are a lot of negatives about that. But I think the ultimate goal, meaning what's the end game, is in a few weeks we're going to revisit this, and the goal is to get the kids back into the buildings. So if we have to do things to maximize safety, then I'm for it. I agree with a lot of things that Mr. Swilley and Ms. Arnold said. There's no denying it. But I think when we go back in our hybrid model, the last thing we need is to have a COVID outbreak. I understand about families wanting to wear color on the cloth masks. Believe me, I know sometimes these are uncomfortable. But once again, why are we doing it? To safely get the kids transitioned back into school. And my preference is the second marking period to get them back into full bricks and mortar, and we get on with our lives. So I'm just in support of the current policy, the way it's written. I know there's some angst about it. I know there's a bump in the road about doctors' excuses if you really want to push it. I know in my heart there's not one administrator, one adult, one teacher in our district that isn't going to help a kid with a dirty mask, a dirty gaiter. If they drop it on the bus and it gets stepped on, we're going to get them a new one. If they break the loop, we're going to get them a new one. And we have the masks provided. So there's a huge supply of it. Just as if we're washing our hands as best we can, just like we're fumigating all the rooms at the end of the day and things like that, washing things down, it's a massive inconvenience for a lot of people. And I think this is just one inconvenience just to maximize that safety. And then we prove to ourselves that we can go back to a bricks and mortar. So that's all I have to say.
Phil, do you have a data point that you're looking at that shows that a multi-layer cloth mask is less effective than the blue paper masks? Because I honestly did look for one.
Yeah.
I looked for them. I wanted to see it. I asked one of the teachers that sent us information today what she was basing it on. She sent me back a link to a study that was done on 14 different styles of masks, and the difference between cloth masks and the paper masks was negligible, like decimal.
And it depends.
And that's assuming that they were both properly fitted, which most of these pictures that I'm seeing of these kids, they aren't. They're gaping. It's a false sense of security that we're passing out to everyone, saying that it has to be this way because an alternative is unsafe.
Yeah, and there's medical literature and data points on both sides. And there's a big, I just came from months of extracurriculars, okay? There are so many hypotheticals. What if a kid does this and we don't get reported? What if? I could give you scenarios that teachers may help fit the mask for a little kid. If a little kid comes in with a gaiter that's slipping down, there's so many hypothetical situations.
Well, a gaiter would need a doctor's note under my proposal. It wouldn't just be like they can come on with that.
I understand, and I know what the regulation says. I read the regulation as well. I don't agree with everything that the regulations say. I am not a Department of Health fan, okay, because I've spoken to the Department of Health, and I gotta be honest with you. This is what you get from the Department of Health a lot of times. It's not my job, ask this guy. You talk to that guy, he says, no, it's the other guy's job. So, I'm not a fan of the Department of Health, but the regulation is written poorly in my opinion. But regardless, Holly, I just believe that we have this policy. It's a short-term policy. We can revisit it, and I think it maximizes the safety. We have these masks, and I understand that parents should have the right to choose. I read all the emails. I'm just giving you my 2 cents as a school board member, a parent of a kid that is in the district, and a physician. And I will tell you, if a doctor walks into surgery with a gaiter on, he's not going to be doing the surgery. So there's a reason that the doctors wear these cloth masks in the OR. It does protect, there's better air droplet coverage, and it not only protects the patient or the person they're interacting with, but it also protects the wearer of the mask.
You meant the paper mask, right? You said
Yes,
paper,
mask.
so you mean paper.
These are the ones that we've got, Heather, right?
Right. I did, Holly, I did find 4 different articles that, and one is...
Research studies or like a
Yeah.
paper?
No, this one actually, there are research studies here.
Holly, look what happened.
But most...
Well, no, my question actually, I just want to ask one more question. Would you be supportive of all athletes being required to wear only those masks at practices and games?
I would be. I would be. We have them. Mr. Janeski's here. Thanks, buddy. Mr. Janeski's here, and that's what we're wearing. We don't wear the masks, of course, when they're working out, when they're obviously in between the drills and things like that. When it's 85 degrees out, you have to make the decision. We're talking about athletics. Does a kid die of sudden cardiac arrest because he's wearing the mask? You can't do that. There's some coaches that can't wear these. I have trouble wearing the masks outside, but we supply these masks before the game, right? We did that for Saturday. So these are the masks that are supplied, and
But I don't see a single mask like that at any of the practices for any of the sports. And if it truly is a matter of the data, and it truly is a
You're right.
matter of the kids need it because without it they're unsafe. They would be unsafe in a cloth mask. Then I don't understand why we aren't then providing it and requiring it for everything.
I'm not saying, and if you misunderstood me, I did not say that cloth masks are unsafe.
Then there's no reason that they can't wear them.
I said my piece.
Just a couple of quick things. I'm going to try my best to not repeat points that have already been made. The other thing that I really would encourage folks to remember is whatever we do is a plan for today, and that plan will continue to evolve and change. We just talked about revisions to the sports that just came about. In general, I think about I'm not sure the discussion is so much in terms of what's safe for the kid as what is easiest and best to manage in this district for at least a period of time. So we opened up the school today with the current standard and things went relatively well. There were issues. I talked to several teachers, whether it was dirty stuff, not fitting, not sure if there was a doctor's excuse and somebody wearing something else. You know, those things are going to happen. You know, you heard a couple people talk about what P&G is doing, and they have a different mask. One thing that P&G does is have a standard, and they stick to it in general. And so the problem that we have with cloth masks is it's one extra variable we have to manage. That very well may be the right thing to do. I'm just not sure it's right to make that decision today. Like, I definitely have heard more issues with the cloth mask being a priority for parents so far versus what I'm hearing and getting reported from teachers of what kids are actually experiencing in the classroom. So it would be interesting to know, will this data change and how important will it be if we did nothing for 2 weeks? I, in general, favor a cloth mask, but it would need to be with a specific standard around that. I think if we don't have behind the ear loops and a tight-fitting mask, then that's not okay. So, you know, we're talking about face shields being off, gaiters not being part of that, but whatever we do, it would need to be a standard set for whatever type of masks are going to be allowed. And again, you're introducing one level of complexity on top of something that's already a pretty complex thing to manage. So I'm not sure what the right thing to do is. I just think saying people can wear whatever mask they want is not going to be the right answer. I believe that a couple of neighboring school districts had issues with that, with people showing up the first day without really anything that was advisable. So we can debate whether the paper mask or a cloth mask is better, but if somebody's showing up with something dirty and not around their mouth, that's definitely not what we want. So whatever we do, I think it needs to require a specific standard, and we need to figure out how easily that could be implemented or enforced.
There's just a couple pieces of information I wanted to share so that the group has some additional data as you are considering the discussion this evening. Number one, we are working to get the pediatric masks more broadly into some of the grade levels at the IC. So you are correct, and I know that that has been a parent concern, that the size that was sent home was ill-fitting for a lot of our, what I would call early intermediate center age kids. So that was part of the reason why we offered the mask pickup that we did on Tuesday night, was so that if anybody felt like they needed to make an adjustment for size, we actually had excellent participation. We probably handed out, I would say, anywhere from, probably 500 to 750 masks that night with people coming through. So that was good. Second, we have made the adjustment now that in the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, the pediatric masks will be what we will use as the standard supply versus, you know, box of this, a box of this. We recognize that the vast majority of kids in that age range fit best with that pediatric mask. So from a access and a supply issue, we have a sufficient supply of both the pediatric as well as the adult size masks. So that's one item I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. Number two, I wanted to make sure that folks knew that the masks that were donated by P&G are the ones that you both have here tonight. So the white one that is being manufactured at the local P&G plant is the mask that was donated to the district. Unfortunately, it's a limited supply. So the reality is that that is not currently, there aren't numbers to be able to support us like for all the district needs over the next several months. Certainly we're optimistic that maybe there will be an opportunity for us to get additional masks. What we have done right now is when we had someone identify that they have a concern with the blue mask, whether that's a fit issue, a comfort issue, we have made sure that they know that there are a couple of different styles. So we've also had some, the supply that we've received has not always been the exact same vendor. So one of the other things that we have offered to individuals is if there is a different mask that we have in inventory, we have tried to make sure that we get that in their hands. So, being that it's day 2, having personally been, working with kids at the intermediate center as they're arriving and dismissing, I've had a lot of conversations with those kids and made sure that they knew that they had access to those things. If they had questions, made sure that those were getting answered, particularly around masks. So I just want to make sure that both from a supply, from a fit standpoint, that the group tonight understands that they are readily available in both sizes. And I understand that that's still not perfect. I do get that. And second, want to make sure that everybody is aware that the masks that were donated were the masks that Bill and Holly shared tonight.
I would like to add a couple things. First of all, I also feel a mask is a mask. If your child is going to school, let them wear a mask, as long as it's a mask. If the teacher feels it's inappropriate, give them a new one. But also, I have a problem with the doctor's note. That is my biggest hang up with all of it. I would like to know, where does it mandate by anybody that our parents not only have to pay a copay to go get a doctor's note, when half of them have been out of work for months? I think it's terrible that we are requiring a doctor's note just to change a mask. If the kid has a mask on, let it go. Why do we need a doctor's note when 3/4 of the physicians in Wyoming County are not even going to write you a doctor's note for a special color or size or brand of a face mask? I've called a few places and I know 3 physicians in Wyoming County that said, no way are we writing a doctor's note for that. Dr. Williams is here. Let me tell you, they're not going to write you a note. And we can't expect parents who've been out of work to pay a copay of $20, $30 just for a doctor's note over a mask. Let the kids wear a mask. What does it matter what color, as long as it fits? And if it's dirty, the teacher can give them a clean one. I think it's just overkill, and we're asking way too much when it says that a doctor's note's not a requirement. So why is Tunkhannock School District requiring that? That's where I have a problem. That's all I have to say about it.
There are doctors in Tunkhannock that are writing notes.
There is a few.
They're writing notes saying that a PDE, a face covering matching the criteria set by PDE is acceptable.
And I agree with
And
you.
some-
There are a few, but
some
there are
doctors-
some that will not.
Because we have, like, I've said this, the board already knows this, but just for everybody, like, I went to my doctor, I paid the copay, I took the time off of work, and I did get a note, and my kids are doing our own version of whatever we've decided as a family is best
And
for
I
them.
agree with you, but there are
There
some
are
doctors
there
that
are
will
some
tell you no.
doctors, some guy singer doctors that you don't even need to be seen. They don't even talk to you. You just call up and say you want a note to wear a shield. Because that was the only alternative they thought they had. They would prefer to have their kid wear a cloth mask, but they didn't think that that was going to be an option. So they just had their doctor write the note for the shield. Which I think anybody who actually looks into how all this is supposed to work would probably agree that a well-fitted cloth mask with multi-layer is probably more preferable than a shield. But if the only option they think they have is a shield, then they don't want their kids wearing these masks. If they'll call Dr. whoever at Geisinger, and I know a couple that have, some in my own family, and they just email them a note, and it's all said and done, like that, what did you accomplish?
But that's not in the requirements.
Well, I understand that. Oh, no, I'm not saying, I think it is a moot point. Anyway, I'm going to make a motion that we amend the mask policy to permit cloth masks with set guidelines of whether that be multi-layer, whether that be ear loop, whatever it is that is the pleasure of the board, that we allow those without a note, and that for any other variety, they still would require a doctor's note. So that's my motion. And
Wait,
it
can
die
you
here,
repeat
or
what you
somebody
said
can
about
second it.
doctor's note?
So that anybody who wanted to wear what's the word I'm looking for? A compliant face mask. So that would exclude gaiters, that would exclude face shields, that would exclude anything but a multi-layer cloth mask with ear loops, if you want to be that specific. That a student may wear those in lieu of the district masks, and that any other face covering that they would want to try to wear would require a doctor's note. Basically like this is now. So if you wanted a shield, if you wanted the gaiter, if you wanted whatever, it would still require a doctor's note. And then if you say we can revisit this in 2 weeks, or if you want to revisit this in 4 weeks, but that's the motion that I put on the table. And if, like I said, if it dies here, it dies here. I did my part, but I don't see any logical reason that it should, because we're not making the athletes wear them, and the idea that it's just for the convenience of the staff and teachers so that they can look in a room and see all the blue, that's not justifiable either. I have to wear steel-toe shoes at work. It's a safety issue. I get to pick out the ones that fit me the best.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Can I answer Lori's question? Yes. So, Lori, the reason that I feel compelled to ask parents to have a conversation with their physician is that I don't know that child's medical needs. I don't know that child's medical history. I don't know. The physician knows, and the parent knows. So my feeling is that if you're not going to wear what I know, and Holly, the one article I have is from the American Lung Association, and this is a research article, and that the surgical masks do provide more protection than the cloth masks. I believe that that is worthy of a conversation with your physician. Everything that we have done, I have done to the nth degree to protect kids. And I just want people to understand that. I'm not trying to be controlling. I'm not trying to, none of that. And I appreciate that you guys know that. But I wanted to answer your question as to why I think that that's a reasonable request. So that's the answer. I just didn't want that out there on the table just laying there. And I also believe that the use of these masks, we planned for 6 months to get kids back in school. For 6 months, we've worked tirelessly to get children back in school. And now that we're back in school, I feel that we need to work just as hard at protecting the kids and my faculty and my staff so we can stay here. And things will get better, I hope. But I am not going to apologize for trying to keep kids as safe as we possibly can. That is my feeling. That's the way that we work in Tunkhannock. And I don't understand asking us to do less than our best. I just don't.
I think the difference is that I don't see it as less than.
Okay, and I agree.
I believe that there are a lot of people that don't,
Okay.
and I know that there are, and I know that I've been contacted by staff from this school asking me to keep pushing this because they don't want to publicly, but they also see problems with this. So are we saying that, like, if somebody has another paper mask like these ones, that they can put them on their kids instead? If it's just about the surgical mask, or does it have to be the one that Tunkhannock School District sends home with them the day before?
We have, at this point, alerted, at least at the administrative level, what we have currently in stock. So we've said we have the blue ones, we have the P&G ones, we have the children's ones. There's some that are children's ones that we received that have a small print on them. And what we've done is made sure that the building principals are aware of what's in stock. So if a child were to come in with something comparable to like what we have in stock. So let's just say, for example, you are an employee at P&G and you have a child here in the district and you were to send them in with a white cloth mask or white disposable mask that's made at P&G. We've already alerted people that that is part of our supply and is an acceptable option for students to wear. So we wouldn't necessarily know that, to be honest with you. Like if it's a blue, disposable mask when somebody's coming in, if it's the white one, we are starting to be familiar with what the small print is that's on the pediatric ones that we received. But I mean, I will tell you that coming in, if a child had on something like this, something like what you're wearing, that would not be a point of contention.
Gene, do you have a question?
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment, listen to the conversations back and forth here. And I have an order that came out of the Department of Health. And what it does is, it says here, what type of mask apply with this order? And it says let's think about what we're trying to do since this pandemic hit. We're trying to mitigate the threat. Doctor disagree. We're trying to mitigate the threat. How are we mitigating the threat? Wearing masks, social distancing, washing our hands, and taking all of those precautions. One of the things that I don't think a plastic face shield meets this type of requirement, because a plastic face shield, there's another objective to this. You know, we're either going to mitigate the threat or treat the threat. I'm a EMS provider. When I go out in a situation where I might be coming in contact with a COVID patient, you can rest assured it's going to be a mask, it's going to be a face shield, it's going to be gloves, and it's going to be a gown. So I'm dealing with the threat. I am not trying to mitigate the threat. The other thing I don't like about the face shield is this is open. This is open, and people give that face shield up. So how can I protect you if I have that virus and the virus can escape? I'm not a big fan of the face shield alone. But as far as the mask goes, a fitting mask, I just read it. A fitting mask. If you want to get real deep into this thing, you can go and start performing fit testing. That's not what this is about. This is about mitigating the threat. And I think if we wear a mask, wear it properly, doing the social distancing, washing our hands, that's what we need to have done. I was on Aquana Trail today, in the morning and in the afternoon, high school and elementary. And I saw a variety of type masks. And guess what? They're all wearing proper. I saw cloth, I saw fabric, and everything left well. I think the face shield thing, I kind of disagree.
Right now, that's the only option that they have if they get a doctor's note is to have a face
Doctor
shield.
note says they got to wear the face shield so bad.
No, Holly, that's not right. I'm accepting doctor's notes for them to wear cotton masks.
That's not what the paperwork said that came home. It said that you had, if you could get a doctor's note to either wear a shield or an N95.
No.
That's what it said
Okay.
that got sent home.
But what I showed you 2 weeks ago, it said if you want to wear a more protective covering, like an N95, for example, or a less protective covering, like a cotton, that you could do that. But you needed to have a doctor's note to do that.
But the EMA director is saying that at Trail they were allowed to wear cloth masks and everybody was wearing them and everybody was compliant.
That's fine. That's fine.
And just to be clear, if you want to talk about N95, get N95, that's like trying to order gold. You know, I'm trying to order N95 for our EMS providers and some of the healthcare professionals throughout Wyoming County. I can get them. N95s are very extremely difficult. Yes. I'm just not a big fan of the face shield. If it's ordered by a doctor, so be it. But and I don't know if Doctor, you agree with me or not?
I don't believe the face shield alone is as good. However, there may be children that have a health issue, and I believe what Heather is saying is they got to have a doctor's excuse if they want to wear a face shield. So be it.
We have some kids with some pretty complex needs,
Right.
and they may be getting notes to do that. But again, their needs are complex, and I don't pretend to understand or know all of them. So I do believe that is worthy of a conversation with a physician.
And just so you take into consideration what the objective is, what we're trying to do. We're trying to mitigate the threat, not only in the school, but out in the community. And we've been doing a fairly good job at it. We're at 72 cases today. We may go to 73 tomorrow. We're going 1 case, 2 cases, maybe a week. So, you know, I got to commend Wyoming County for people taking that responsibility seriously. Doing that, and I hope that, you know, our school board is going to do the same thing.
Yep, that is the motion that's on the floor is that without a doctor's note, you can wear the school mask or a cloth mask, not a shield, and that you need to get a doctor's note for anything else.
Thank you.
So the current motion we're voting on is a change of standard. Cloth mask has to have some sort of associated standard. So I am in general supportive of that, but I would prefer to wait 2 weeks because we're talking about a bunch of issues. We just opened up school. We don't have an issues list of even what the problems are. It's a lot of conjecture and mild observations. And so in my opinion, this hopefully will be a short-lived issue. I would rather understand what the issues are to be able to put the standard in place to know what I'm voting on. So that's where I stand.
The motion stands, so we can vote, and it is what it is.
Okay. Should we vote on the motion? Everybody ready? Roll call.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Gregory?
Yes.
Dr. Perbola?
No.
Mr. Swilly?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
No.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
No.
Mr. Farr?
No for tonight.
Is that
It's
the
a tie.
board commitment to put this on the agenda in 2 weeks again?
We can do that.
I'll be off in 2 weeks. Good, I'll be here. Maybe.
Do it 2 weeks.
Well, if anybody needs to know who the doctors are, give me a call.
Are there any other comments from the public?
I brought you, okay.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I would just like to ask, for this parent is, the one problem I have with the school supply masks, we don't know who is touching those, who has their hands on those. I don't know if they're safe to be put on my child. That's a very big concern for me. And I've never heard anyone address that.
So the procedure, Craig, do you want to?
I'll just tell you from a high school point of view.
Craig, can you just speak up? I'm sorry.
I'll just tell you from a high school point of view, because I have a last period class. So we get our plastic bagging distributed, and then we have our supply of paper face masks in the room, which aren't touched by anybody but the teacher, at least in my room, it's the teacher. And I sanitize my hands before I stuff them in the little plastic bagging before they go home to the kids at night, for the afternoon. Today I had a girl who got a bloody nose, sit in the back of the class, she excused herself to the bathroom. She took care of her business, she came back in, I sanitized my hands, gave her a new mask, she was great about it. Right. And earlier in the day, I had a student who was wearing a bandana, like a gator type of thing, loosely fitting, so probably not the way that, would be actually okay. My question was, who's going to actually say that it's okay? Is the principal going to be the one policing it? But anyway, that student was very polite and respectful because I said, I don't know if you have a note or not. I appreciate it. You put that on, this mask on, sanitize, give them a mask. And I was confident that other teachers would follow the same procedure. It's kind of funny that, second day, and I today, that's what's going to be weird. But that happened.
So that is the process that we've asked teachers to use. We've even got gloves in the room so they can even sanitize, put on the gloves, and then give the child a mask. So that is the process we've asked them to use, and the principals over there are nodding their heads.
Any other comments?
Not just regarding the mask, but I have something regarding the sales.
Yes, can you speak up?
So anybody doesn't know me, I'm George Dumas. I have 3 children. One was lucky enough to graduate. You guys were great enough to finally make a graduation. And of course, I'm sure you're getting enough. I do appreciate the in-person graduation. You both hard work. I have 2 that are using cyber school now because of all the madness. And here's what I know. You guys did all of this, right? And I hear it there. You worked for 6 months of Iris, and there's not a single person up there, elected officials not getting paid, highly trained and highly paid facility members, faculty members. lot easier if we know that we're making the kids safe. So why don't we know if we're making the kids safe? Why don't I know that our infection rate is up 200%? Why don't I know that? And this is important to me. It should be up there as a on top. And don't feel bad. I call it commissioner's office. There's not a single thing on the wall in the commissioner's office that says, here's where we stand in the county since the beginning. There's nothing to say, hey, we got to do something. We got to react. They may get their little meetings, and they just keep talking about case count. I call there. I try to get, now I'm getting ready to get to the point of the right to know. I want to get some information. Because if you all are making decisions for me as representative elected people, then make it for us. Give some data, not just the word safe. Safe isn't data. I respect it. More kids are going to drown in dying car accidents than of this COVID. So we got to be careful. When is safe is safe? Is it 0.001 infection rate? Is it 0.001 now? We don't know. People all should hold them. They can pull the information. If you're, because some of your arguments would be data-based versus all this conjecture that's going on. All right? Now, the governor's order is the force of law, right? So I found professionals that still haven't read the governor's order, about 4-page order, the building safety code, and they haven't done it. Everything from chiefs of police to, it's just not being done. And there's going to be some of you not who haven't done it either. I'm busy doing this. That I got a ton of respect for. Because I couldn't survive as an elected official up there, work my job, and try to do this, and you guys did. So don't think I don't care what you did. I do. But I do know that you need opposition. And I'm going to be the opposition, all right? And if anything, all I want is consistency. If it ain't coming, and I'll just keep asking for it. There's no reason not to have that. Everybody in here should know how well are we doing. Are we safe? Why don't we know if we're safe? Where's that line? Up there on the dashboard or something. You guys asking for doctors, excuse me, I'm going to tell you right now. Let's say that you believe you're getting information from the Department of Education. It's a big Department of Education, but you are, because it's an index that looks just like ours, okay? There's hyperlinks I can't touch on here on the page, but when you open them up, it eventually opens up to the governor's 4-page order, right? And it tells you that no documentation is needed if you can't wear a mask. There's no documentation needed. I'm telling you, I keep hearing this buzzword in the background about everybody being afraid of being sued as a district if someone catches COVID. You're going to get sued eventually because it's common, just because people aren't doing their constitutional rights yet, they're not doing their civil liberties. Let's pretend that governor's order is the new non-law law because it says there's emergency powers in it. It has the force of law. So if you read it, and I'll show it to you, I'll give you a copy of it. It's a force of law. And the force of law from the governor, which I do not support, but if we stuck to this dang order, this will all be, you guys are getting caught up in this, and I appreciate that. But someone's got to say, came from, this all comes from a 4-page order. And the 4-page order literally tells you you don't have to wear a mask if you can't wear one. There's no documentation required. There's no trying to say, well, is that medical condition acne? Is that medical condition anxiety? Or that? You don't have to explain nothing. You're all talking about which ones they were or not, right? And you want to defend and you want to have safety. I get it. When are we there? When are we there? I want some data. Because I'll shut up when I find out what 400 points. When we went from 0 to 9 or something, I'll shut up. I'll sit down. But until I get that data, I'm going to still be in opposition. I'll probably still be in opposition. I'll still be more quiet when I find out that something's up. I don't know what's going on. And just because it's easy, right? Just because it's easy to manage, okay, that sounds great. I respect it because you all think you just did this. And your words alone, for the last 6 months, you did this. Why did you want to change it? You got to change it with the data that's available. And I promise that I will be forcing some changes somehow, because I've gone to attorneys, I'll flip burgers, I'll stand in the protest line and all that crazy stuff. But sooner or later, someone's got to tell you, you're all nuts, and we're gonna oppose this all too. We're gonna oppose it, and someone's got to push. So I'm gonna push it. Now look at the PIAA represented this very well. They told the governor, hey, we got this. You asked us to do something. This is our field of expertise, governor. Back off, we got this. Because the governor's not supposed to lead us, the governor's supposed to lead the representatives. And our representatives have been declined to gather, and we're not hearing all the experts because they're not gathered in the General Assembly. You go out to Harrisburg, which I have, you cannot get into the office of right to know today. So at minimum, I want the right to know what's happening in my county. I want one man to know what's going on. And I have to keep calling. I want it posted someplace executive meeting should be open with that. You're stating this meeting should be open with that. It should be posted at the top of the page, not even a title, but a montage of how we're doing with what's transmittable, with cover rate, with stinking infection. I want it all. There's no reason not to have it this far into it. I know you're busy. I respect that. And some of you I love for what you've done. And the ones I don't know, I probably still will look because there's no one up there I don't like for what you're doing. I even like the opposition that's up there. That would say, I'm nuts for what I'm doing. But the order says you cannot ask for a doctor's order. I promise you, you're up for a lawsuit because the order, the force of law says stop doing that. And if you think that the Department of Pennsylvania Educational Department said to do it, well, go on to their hyperlink because their hyperlink goes right back to that thing. Someone screwed up there, so go ahead and keep going. Don't just be worried about being sued because someone might get it, and because you're not doing all that you can do, because I hear it all the time. I hear it here, I read it. It says mask with social distancing is impossible. Guidelines. You're supposed to tailor the first paragraph that directs to you. The first paragraph is a background. The next paragraph directed to you, our representatives, is to tailor to the specifics of your community. Where's my specifics so I can tell that you're tailoring to my specifics? That we're not going to sit here and be fighting some this, and meanwhile we have kids drowning and dying at a higher rate. These masks are going to stick around for a long time because there are going to be some people who just are scared to death.
Okay, George, thank you.
There's going to be comorbidities that are going to hang on to it. And there's going to be some people who say, let's get going. Let's get going because we're not going to get there if someone doesn't push back. So stop talking about clouds and this and that. Know that the doctors issue things better really, you got to go into an executive session, go into executive session, hear my words. If you're worried about being sued because someone might get it because you're not doing enough, worry about being sued because you're not following the force of law, the governor's order. If we all follow the governor's order to a T, half these arguments, sorry, goes away. You're not following it. You haven't, there's people up there, I know that haven't read. So please read the governor's order. There's an old one that says anybody can enter a premise without a mask on, no documentation required.
Thank you, George. Anybody else?
I'm not finished, if you don't mind.
You've had your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it.
You've used over 5 minutes. Thank you. Anybody else?
So I just need to, so George, you started out by saying you respect the people up there. But it didn't sound that way. So just so you know, like I know. This is my time. Give me a second, please. You said we don't know the data. I track Wyoming County data. I track Indiana data where my daughter. I listened to you. Please listen to me.
But I didn't say what you said. I'm not worried about you guys not knowing because some people all might know. We need to see.
You said you guys up there don't know the data.
No, we don't know it's not up there. We need to know that you're using data. I need to see it. There's no reason why can't we see it. What's this?
You said we're making decisions without knowing the data, right? So my point is I am making decisions on data. I feel like I know what's best for my kids and my community. I want you to listen. So I listened to you. I gave you that respect. You said a lot of things. Some of them I agree with. Some of them I do not. So you know my daughter goes to Notre Dame. The problem is they had a COVID outbreak and they shut down. And so we have a different demographic than people coming from all over the country. I fully get that. Our risk in Wyoming County is significantly less. I would like to do something for a temporary time period. Let's call it 9 weeks, which is what we agreed to. Be as strict as we can in hopes that we stay open. My 2 boys go to this school. You chose to keep yours at home, which is great. That's your decision. But I want to keep them in school as best I can. You have a different viewpoint on how to do that than I do, which is okay. But I just want to push back because I heard you say that we're making decisions not based on data, and I disagree with that.
Okay, so we're so far into this pandemic.
Thank you, George.
Wait, hold on. I got to respond to that.
No.
We're so far
George.
into this pandemic. I should know that we need to see that.
George, there are other people here tonight. Thank you. Does someone over here want to speak? Yes.
Are you talking about the high school?
Well, I have high school and I have
Okay, so primarily the kids are stationary. They don't move that much. The only time that they move would be to the cafeteria, and those seats are cleaned in between each of the kids' classes going in. At the high school, we have desk coverings, and what we're trying to do is to eliminate exactly what you're talking about. So I'm sitting at a desk and I sneeze. We have a desk covering that the child takes with them, wads it up and throws it away. I know it's not the greatest thing as far as conservation, but I also know that we have tried, and we came up with a solution. Whereas I don't know how other districts are doing that. Some of the teachers have gone through our cleaning protocol. They've been trained in cleaning, and so they are cleaning the desktops or the tables. In the labs situations, we're using big rolls. So similar thing, that goes with the child. So that is changed every class period. Next kids come in, they grab their own covering for the desk, they sit down at the desk. When they're done, they wad it up and they throw it away. The buses are fumigated or fogged, I should say, not fumigated. They're after each run. So we do it in the morning here on campus, and then all of the drivers and the contractor, I should say the contractors have been provided with foggers, and they do it after their late run, after the afternoon run. So it's clean for the next morning.
There's two other things I'll just mention. One is you mentioned the issue with fit for your older daughter. So what we'll do is ensure that those pediatric masks are readily available. We recognize, we're learning as we go. And so the assumption that every child in 8 to 12 can fit into an adult-sized mask is not a good assumption. And so that's an easy one. We can ensure that there's something. That one doesn't fit her either?
No, she's in the in-between.
Yeah.
She is very small. So the adult one is too small. My husband and I have raised our 3 children on the neck gaiters. My husband's also a mechanic. He's in and out of cars all day, every day. He has not stopped working whatsoever since the pandemic. I am a cancer survivor and I'm still healing from everything. My immune system is weakened. I am at a high risk. With having my husband in his job, all of us doing the neck gaiters, we don't have an issue with them. The neck gaiters work for my family. Every family is different, and I know that. For my family, my situation, our neck gaiters work. I have the neck gaiters that fit on my kindergartner perfectly fine. I have a 4th grader who is at a behavior school. He wears neck gaiters that fits him perfectly fine. Then my 9th grader has hers that fits hers perfectly fine. So there are no risks of them having any openings unless they take it down, but that's anything.
One other thing I'll just share with the group so that everyone has similar information regarding the high school. We recently learned that there is a new product that is becoming available that is a microban product that you can apply to surfaces. And so what we're looking at doing is seeing if we can get that would be applied to desks and tables at the high school, since the turnover of students is much more frequent. And that requires it to be applied every few weeks and has the ability to fight infection in between applications. So this is something that we just recently learned about. It's a product that's being made here in the U.S. And are looking into getting here at the district. So more information to come. So this is a good example of where, when we see new opportunities that present themselves, that we can continue to improve on the systems that we have in place here for the district. We're certainly looking to do that.
One more question though. Have you guys looked at any kind of daycare to see what they're doing? And I only ask this because one of my children are in daycare. You cannot social distance children in daycare the same way we can in school. My daycare's been open for a couple months now. We did shut down for a little bit. We've had no issues. We're not shut down. There's no corona there. Everybody has different masks. Have we looked into how daycares are doing things and what guidelines are they using? Because they're the ones that are close in.
Right. So we share the Mahoopany space with several different early childhood models, and we have made sure that theirs and our standards of care are consistent. So we have, yes.
Anybody else?
Phil.
Jack?
I just wanted to let the board know, so the next 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk about it again. This is the data from P&G, so you have it. So when we started 6 months ago in March, we didn't shut the plant down, obviously, because we need the product. We wanted to make sure we could safeguard the people that work there and their families and our consumers. So that was our plan. We started with the blue mask, as Bill fully mentioned, because that's what we had, and then we put the mask lines in, and now they're the white masks. There's no difference in color, it's just a color difference. We, as a company, went to the standard mask across the United States, across the company. If you work at P&G, you wear this mask, including in other countries, mostly because the research indicated the paper masks are better than other types of face coverings, like Dr. Camola said. That's why. So that's what P&G's done purely to manage safety. If you look at our cohort, we have 2,000 people that work in the plant. We've had under 10 positive cases that we caught in temperature scannings and all the other things, and we've had no community spread from P&G. So I think there's just a data point that you guys might want to think about when you're thinking through if you want to change your standard. It is a lot easier to manage a standard that's like, this is what it is. Our folks didn't love it. There's folks that still don't like it. Everybody's kind of just gotten on with it, and we don't have a safety issue in the plant as a result. So I just wanted to share that so you had a data point from P&G on what we're doing.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Phil.
Just response.
I have a couple of questions. I just want to confirm a few policies. Based on what Mr. Kaiser had said about his classroom, is it correct that the mask supply is in each room and they are not individually packaged? So we have a teacher using hand sanitizer and then immediately touching the masks and bagging them and sending them home. Is that how this is working?
So in some classrooms, like at the primary center, they have access to a sink in their classroom. So what the direction that we have set has been hand washing or hand sanitizing or gloves prior to handling the gloves or handling the masks as they're distributed.
Okay, but the masks are still involved in the classroom and not previously divided up?
Correct. So in the bulk that you're referring to, most of the boxes that we have, and John, you correct me, but most of them are like 50-pound boxes. Some of them are, there's one that's sitting here on the table. This is pretty common. Like I said before, we have received supplies from different suppliers. So not every box in the district looks like that, but that is by and large what we're seeing. The pediatric ones are in like a soft-sided pack. And are similar count. I think they may be 35 or 50. I'm not 100% sure. John's nodding his head, so it's in that range. But yes, that's what is being delivered to the teachers' classrooms. So the teachers have enough for the week, and on Thursdays, we deliver them new supply so that they have access to those every week, every day, and we ensure that that supply is continually replenished. That's our plan going forward.
Okay, so they're sent home on a daily basis, or is it like by
Currently, our plan is daily. And, that's another one that we have had varying thoughts on in terms of, do you send home 5 a week? Do you send them home daily? And so we're evaluating. So our plan is to do one a day for the, next couple of weeks and observe and see how we feel kids are doing. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time just to kind of really gather some data to say, are they consistently making it home? Today I actually saw kiddos walking in and they had their Ziploc bag in their hand, as they were coming from their car line. So, you can tell that they had just taken it out and had put it on while they were in the car. So, we need to kind of observe and see.
Is there air conditioning in the primary center classrooms?
There is not air conditioning in the primary center classroom.
Is there a written policy, either by grade level or by building, for the mask breaks for children, or are we relying on the teachers to make that determination, or waiting on students to ask for it?
So I'm going to defer to the principals, Michelle, in the IC.
At the IC, I have encouraged my teachers to use their discretion to give mask breaks and to teach kids to advocate for themselves in the need of breaks. How about you, Summer? I would agree. It seems to feel like on an average it exists, especially for these little kids. They're getting comfortable with them, but they are doing remarkably well, advocating for themselves. Teachers do their
and both of them were offered mask breaks on a fairly regular basis throughout the course of the day. One of my children said that in some cases, not everybody took it off. And my youngest said that they were offered short breaks throughout the day. So it wasn't like you just got a 10-minute one. Everybody's off for 10 minutes and then the clock starts again. Some kids said that they saw that the teachers had written times on the boards, just so that kids could kind of plan for it and know when that was coming. So I think, at least in the conversations that I have had informally, that has not been a barrier. They have felt like they were provided regular breaks. But I understand your question about the standardization.
I was actually speaking with a kindergartner today, and I asked her about mask breaks, and she said there are some kids that ask for them, but that the teacher hasn't told them specifically. Now, of course, as a kindergartner, she's not in school for 2 days, and we can't really entirely depend on that. But it just got me thinking, like, are we actually saying to them, it's okay, you need to take this off for a certain amount of time? Because to her, how was your day at school? This kid sat on the desk, and this one did that, and that's what she's concerned with, this behavior, because that's what we've been drilling into her all these years. So I just want to make sure that it's not coming across to the kids that a mask break is a negative thing for them. If they need that break, they can have it.
Right. That's certainly not my perception, but I hear your point. I mean, that's something we can take back. We can just discuss as a team, like ways that we can put some more rigor in that to ensure that those conversations are happening.
I would like to say that it would be great if I can just trust that all teachers would take that incentive to do that. And in most of my experience in this district has been that way, but it was only a year and a half ago that I had to work with Heather and a building administrator because my child was refused the right to have water in the classroom. And I just don't see any kids suffering thinking they can't take the mask off when they are able to.
Especially when we're talking about the benefits of standardization, I think we need to employ that across the board on this issue and not just at convenient times.
I also asked a fourth grader yesterday, he said, oh, we have our masks off all the time. I said, well, not just all the time. Well, in every class, at once, So it's up to interpretation for sure, but it has to be something that maybe that's not standardized across the board. And, obviously you'll have different needs in different classrooms, dealing with small kids and no air conditioning and very pleasant conditions.
So I'm going to ask the building principals to, based on age groups and, right, like how often that, but to let me know how they're going to standardize that in their buildings. And then if you guys just drop me an email and we can talk about it at the next admin meeting if there's any issues.
Heather, I have two quick things.
I'm sorry, Laura.
I have two quick
I couldn't
things
tell who was
before we
talking to me.
adjourn.
Okay, yeah.
And this has nothing to do with masks or COVID or anything. Back in February, I believe, I had received an email from Todd, I think it was Todd. We were going to have a safety committee meeting. Now, we quickly shut down,
Yeah.
that was canceled, and it was basically to bring on, I believe I had requested Jean be present, the chief from Triton be present. Can we, I
Yes.
know everybody's been busy, but can we at least get,
Yeah.
like, fire is pretty significant on top of this virus going around. And I
Yes.
think we just need to all get back.
So we have circled back around to our all hazards plan, and that's part of that process, is to review that with them, to educate ourselves. Obviously, through all of us, just because we have changes that have happened, we've got Mahoopany open again. So yes, we will get that set up, Laura.
Okay, and
Okay.
can you please remember to add me to that?
Yes.
And the last thing is, can we communicate with the borough police, please? On Main Street, I actually have photographed cars running the flashing lights, picking up kids on Main Street.
Say that again for me.
There are cars running our buses, stop signs, and flashing lights on Main Street. We do not need a
On
child
Tioga?
run over.
Are you talking about on Tioga Avenue?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I think it needs to be addressed. If we could get the borough to give us a hand and keep an eye on that.
Well, we'll make that call. I'll have Rich do that tomorrow.
Perfect.
We actually had, we've been in touch with them. I mean, we work very closely with the borough and the township police, and they are super responsive.
I
And we
observed
had
it
another
two-
call. We
I
called them
observed
last
it 2
night.
days in a row, and
Okay.
it's rather terrifying.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Without a doctor's note, only these masks are okay. If you get a doctor's note, it can be anything. Right, yeah, no, but in the meantime, if you get a doctor's note, you can wear whatever you want. Right. I know.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is you're asking that we consider that as part of the definition of what would be considered. So, Holly, I wrote down a few words, key things that you had said multi-layered, you had said over the ear, you had said cloth. I mean, so, and I hear what you're saying is the multi-layer could be the filter, is what you're saying. So, yeah, I mean, I think as we reevaluate like how that wording could potentially be put together, that's certainly something that we can take into consideration.
Heather, I forgot the
Yeah.
information from the courthouse. Can I pick?
Oh, yeah, I think, or you can just talk to Todd about it. Or you want to talk about it at the meeting?
Well, I would like, just so that we can hopefully move forward, I would like it for public record
Okay.
that I brought it to the board as I was
Sure.
asked. I received an email from Flo from the voter registration, the elections office, that they received a message from Jack Chilson. And it was so that he was showing an interest in creating a voter registration drive for Tunkhannock. And that's so that Tunkhannock could get involved with the Governor's Civic Engagement Award. So if nobody has a problem, I would like to forward this to possibly Sue Elias, because I know she works on the scholarships, and to Todd. And then they could meet with, this was sent to myself, Ashley Kippinger, Mason Crawford, and Jack Chilson. And I would like to forward that, just so everybody's aware that I'm going to forward it, because it is a senior that has taken an interest in doing the registration drive. So I'm just gonna go ahead and forward that tomorrow, just so you're all aware that what's gonna be sent.
Thank you.
I think
Anybody
it's
else?
important that it be understood that that's completely apolitical when that happens. Like no buttons, no T-shirts for candidates. Like if you're running a political or non-political voter
Strictly
drive.
voter registration.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Good question. We were told, yesterday we were told 2 weeks, and then today we were told like the end of October. Yeah, so I don't know. I know that from the company that we ordered them from, we were third in the queue. All right, and we ordered these things in June. So they're just backed up, and schools across the Commonwealth, well, across the nation are facing this. So we're working on a plan of how are we going to deploy what we have left? Because obviously the kids at the high school who do not have devices at home, right, they're doing an A-B schedule, and that's where we need to start. So we're working on that plan, and Joe has really been dogging these guys like every single day, and he will continue to do that. A lot of kids have devices at home, so what we would try to do is allow them to use those devices that they have at home, and the high school kids that don't have devices, all right, now, how are we're gonna deploy these what devices we have left. And Joe did send me those numbers today. you know, we have several hundred devices left. We just have to devise a plan to distribute those to the kids that need them. So I expect that'll happen next week, okay? And the kids that are coming in K to 6 right now, they're doing fine. And, you know, so I think we have enough to get by. I think it's gonna be really tight. And then when the new Chromebooks come in, then everybody gets them.
Okay.
Philip.
We have, Millie, yes.
Can I have one? I have something that's very near and dear to my heart. Since the last meeting, on the news I saw the other day, Lehigh Valley Health Network and Pottsville School are working together to, like a dual enrollment class sort of, for kids in high school to learn to become EMTs. We have a shortage of EMTs and EMS people in this county. And I would like to see if Tunkhannock High School and either Geising or CHS could get together to do the same type of thing, because in my community, there's only 3 of us on an ambulance, and I know with Gene at times that you just don't have enough crew to get out. And I would like to see this program follow how they're doing it to give these kids a chance, because going to this EMT classes is very outrageously expensive. And if we can do it in high school, I think it would be a great comeback for our local, because once we lose our volunteers, we're in trouble. And I would like to see somebody help take this and run with it so we can bring some of this back in our communities. In my organization, the last 10 years, when we had half a dozen kids or 8 or 10 students, out of Tunkhannock, we turned out a couple of doctors. We have some that are paramedics. We in our ambulance association, we've turned out quite a few of these young kids. But I would like to see, because all these organizations need volunteer help, and if we can help turn it out in school, it would be a great blessing.
So, Bill, why don't I do this? Greg, can you find out what that entails and just bring it back to this group? Okay? Just so that they have an informed idea of what does this look like and could it be done? Okay.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you.
We will go into executive session, and for personnel, we will not be returning.
Can I have just a very second administrative question?
You had a long time before, George.
You have the same questions.
You had a longer one.
Is this your first?
So, you get 15 seconds.
I've asked in the past for data, in the public setting here, and then I've asked for it in private. When will I know if we're going to start using data up on the boards so we can see what's driving us? We don't know what's driving us. Maybe that's why it might sound like it, I've been asking you to see the data. I can't get big answers. I'm not getting the school board. What data are you using? Can we see it? So we can register. You see that you guys are watching, so there is spike, you're spiking with it, and time to react to the whole thing. Why can't we have that? So you can answer that here now.
George, the data is for Wyoming County. Gene said we have 70 cases. Wait, let me finish. I called the Department of Health. I talked to Heather about this. No one at the Department of Health can give me an answer of how many active cases we have in Wyoming County. So there's no data. So here's the data point, George, and I love you. The data point is we have an experiment right now, and it's getting the kids back to school. So there's 0 data. Our hope and our hypothesis that in 6 weeks from now, we have no COVID cases in this school, so we can open up the school and move forward. So I don't care what happens in Phoenix, and I don't care what happens in New York. But let me finish. So our data points are going to come between now and 6 weeks. And as I said, I'm hopeful that we can open up our community and our school. So that's the data, George. That's the data.
This is my third time. I have asked for you. There is transmission rate, there's recovery rate in Wyoming County, there's death rate. Why don't we have all of it? Not just cases.
George, there's 4 people that died in Wyoming County and 7 cases that are documented. 70 cases that are documented. That's the data.
It's not enough.
Okay, we'll talk later. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.